Hello, this is Steve once again, and today I'm going to kind of reflect on an interesting issue that sort of runs around in my vegan circles. So, yes, this is a vegan post today, but I feel it's kind of an important one. Uh, right now, every year at this time of year in China, they have something called the Yulin Dog Festival, and obviously, if you've never heard of it, you just need to Google it, and you'll see millions of pages worth of outrage, hundreds of videos of some of the most atrocious things you can imagine. Dogs being boiled alive, being skinned alive, being charbroiled alive, whatever the heck you want to call it. And it's just a really a despicable event. And for years, people have been trying to petition the Chinese government to stop this. And so it's something that's very heartbreaking because myself included, I'm a big dog lover, and there's a lot of people, especially here in America and in the westernized world in general, uh, that are dog lovers. Now, one thing that always kind of bothers me at this time of year, of course, is the overt hypocrisy and the overt racism uh, in regards to this event. First of all, we'll start with the hypocrisy. I mean, you have a whole bunch of people that proclaim themselves as animal lovers. I love dogs, I love cats, whatever. They're outraged and they're angry, and this needs to stop. But then they open their fridge and there's boatloads of meat, there's boatloads of dairy, and and the thing is, they just don't understand the hypocrisy of what they're saying, because when you look at the industrialized uh, ranching in this country, it is far worse than anything you can imagine in regards to this dog festival. And some of the images I see every day on my Facebook feed, it just makes my stomach turn. I don't even acknowledge their existence anymore, in hopes that you know the Facebook algorithms stop showing me these videos. But I just can't avoid them. And I guess it kind of helps sometimes, because then it just sort of reiterates my stance on veganism, that it's an ethical choice as opposed to an eating regimen, which is kind of the difference between plant-based and vegan. And someday I'll get to talk about that on another post. But today we're just going to focus on this dog festival. And either way, the hypocrisy is something that wrangles the hide of a lot of vegans, because let's face it, we're doing some horribly atrocious things. We're artificially inseminating cows to have babies. Half the time we're throwing those babies away and turning them into veal, dog food, whatever. I mean, the pork industry is even worse. I mean, I've seen images of a mother pig, and she's got 4 or 5 dead piglets in this little pen with her, and she's trying to revive them, but they're all dead. And sadly, I've kind of become numb to some of these things because I've just seen them so many times. And I don't think I ever need any more convincing to whether my stance on what I'm doing and how I'm eating will ever need to be changed, because every day I'm reminded. And I have a pretty good memory anyway, so I don't think, unless there's some kind of catastrophic health problem I have, I mean, I don't think I'm going to be changing anytime soon. And this is where I kind of become angry about one thing, is the hypocrisy. And this has kind of always been sort of a put down of the animal rights movement, is that a lot of people, this is where their racist side kind of comes out, because let's face it, some of the most messed up videos I've ever seen are from Asia. I mean, there's the classic video of somebody just eating a live octopus, just swallowing the damn thing whole, or there's a video of an octopus being grilled alive. There's one that kind of disgusted me pretty thoroughly. Is this one toad cut open, stuffed with food, and while he's still breathing and moving, people are eating out of him. I mean, how messed up is that? So this is where I think a lot of my issue comes into effect, when people start saying, "Oh, these scummy Asians, these dirty Asians, we gotta bomb the hell out of their country," or whatever the heck kind of jingoistic nonsense comes out of their, their pretend Facebook name feed. And you have to constantly remind those people that, hey, what's going on in the westernized world is far worse. I mean, we're using educational material of cows with a hole in their stomach so you can look in their stomach. I mean, how messed up is that? So we do things that are just as disgusting and just as pitiful as we try to try to portray the Asian people as doing. And one thing that really I always thought was the most messed up, and it had nothing to do with animal violence, it was because of a massive recall in Europe a couple years ago. And they recalled 50,000 tons. 50,000 tons. Let me just try to envision that number. They recalled 50,000 tons of meat of various cows, pork, whatever, because of the possibility of some horses getting into the mix. Now, think about that for a moment. Would it really make any difference? You're eating a dead animal to begin with. Where does this ethical conundrum come in your mind to think that eating a dead horse is any different than eating a dead cow or a dead pig? And then the worst part of which is the stance I took, is, they not only did they take the lives and ended the lives of all these animals, they ended up throwing them away simply because a supposed useful animal somehow got thrown into the mix. And that's really where I get pretty angry. I've had this conversation with people, why don't you get angry about Asian countries eating dogs, or why do you care about animal cruelty to dogs? And, well, dogs are useful, cows aren't. So usefulness is really the barometer of what an animal deserves in terms of life and cruelty. I think not. I mean, I think that's why I always try to keep my stance on the environmental impact of industrialized ranching as opposed to the animal rights side, because I prefer to argue the scientific and the logical facts as opposed to the heartfelt aspect of animal rights. And some might judge me as being a speciesist or something like that. I'll explain that term someday, but it's really the same fight. And to this day, that's what I always kind of lead with in terms of telling people my stance on animal rights and whatnot. That, hey, by growing all these animals and killing them off, we're creating a massive problem for our own planet in terms of water, in terms of land usage, in terms of the amount of methane they're putting into the air. And so I guess in just summation, I just think we need to stop being so hypocritical, stop being so racist about this, and just stand on one united front, say this is just wrong. And don't try to point the finger to try to make yourself feel better, and don't try to justify it because one species is supposedly more useful than the other, which is a stupid argument in my opinion. Do it because it's wrong, and it is wrong, and that's just the bottom line.